Hello, everyone. Welcome back into a new year and another episode of the Author You, Your Guide to Book Publishing podcast. And I'm Dr. Judith Briles, your host. I'm going to be going solo today just to kind of do, since we're in a new year, kind of a kickstart of where you are, where you want to go, how you want to get there, and to revisit who the who's are. There's two who's in your life. Sometimes the who is the same person, but many times the who has another who to it. And I'll explain that in a bit. So let's jump in. I always like to start with a quote from my little book. I hope you have it: How to Create Snappy, Sassy, Salty Success for Authors and Writers. So it's over 400 of my own quotes, and I just randomly always open to see what talks to me. And this one is actually perfect for what I'm going to lead with today. The big gulp for the author, taking the leap and saying, with your words, listen to me, I have something to say. So I wanted to do kind of like some of the reflections that I've had in September, mid-November to September. I was in 5 huge Barnes and Noble stores signing books with other authors. I have a couple of more signings coming up solo here because they invite me back, which is a thing you all want to experience and have. And it's all about the connection and really believe in your words and or your story and getting it across to the reader and the who. So let's start with that who. So who's your reader and who is the buyer? Now, if for my children's authors, the buyer is usually going to be a parent or a grandparent or an auntie or something like that. That is usually going to be the buyer. But the who is for the child, whoever that child is, whatever that age is in that. And it's really important to understand watching authors sometimes, especially for little ones, talking to the little one, forgetting that they needed to talk to the adult with that person because that's the decision maker. Now, the kid may enthusiastically say, Mommy, I want this, or, or turn away, by the way. But know what the benefit of your book is, what it brings for the other who, in this case, the child. What the key thing is about. There's, one book series I can think of. It's really about friendships and it's also anti-bullying. Those are the two main ingredients, and it's peppered with fabulous illustrations and all that. You can bring that in, but knowing how to express your book, to do the connection with the who and the who makes all the difference in the world. Now, I had a book that I wrote, let's see, when, can't remember what year I wrote this. It's not that old. But here's the good news is it's a 223 copyright. And it's the author's walk, right? Finding and using your voice to create publishing success. So it's important to really understand the power of what you bring. And I have toward the very end of the book, as I'm wrapping out the book, a little essay that I wrote right there, right? The power of your words, the power of your voice. And I'm going to go ahead and kick that off and go with it. And this is, there's a phrase I use within the book called juicillating, a word. I made it up. It's not a word. I made it up. But juicillating, to get things going again, to refine your mojo, to get the momentum started again, because we all get tired. All of us get tired um, of the hustle. But it seems that we're all in the ever-ending train. So the power of words and voice, and this is really for each of you to think about and chew is on as I go through this. And I'd get the book just to have this. I'd print it out, I'd have it to remind me, dang, I have important stuff to say. Without your words and your voice, history can become silent. Literature is dumbed down. It disappears. Science reporting is crippled. Thought and speculation are at a standstill. Without your words and your voice, the development and revealing of civilization would be impossible to hear, to see, to know. Without your words and your voice, the storytelling, the visuals, and the narratives you create of your imagination ebb to oblivion. Without your words and your voice, the engines of change disappear. Windows that are the lighthouses erected in the sea of tides recede and vanish. Without your words and your voice, the companions, the teachers, the bankers of the mind will fade away and cease to exist. Without your words and your voice, innovative ideas and solutions will wither to invisibility. And without your words and your voice, everyone, everything is diminished. Your words and your voice are essential. So, what are you doing to practice those things, to carry them about, to keep them all in force so you know what's going on, so you can be true to yourself, which is really what we're looking at too here. So every walk, every time you pick up that pen or you click on your computer and that keyboard and you start clicking away, every time you dictate something, there's a step to it, there's a walk to it. Now, I know some authors dictate everything. I know one of my friends, every chapter is started by hike. The boots go on, he's got his phone and he's recording in the notes. The next chapter is started. So every walk, every story, every chapter, every idea has a first step. And that's where it starts. And I don't care if you're a newbie and you've never published before, or if you're an aspiring author who's coming back to the next book, there's a start. And I remember listening to an interview with John Grisham, who now has, I believe, over 50, 51 books, all at this point New York Times bestsellers. But they asked him how he wrote. You know, does he have a plotting? Does he have it all? He says, nope. How I write is I know I want to start my book and I know how I'm going to end it. And when I start writing that opening, it starts to unfold and he trusts it. He just takes that first step. So know what your first step is. Where are you going to start something? And see where it takes you on that. And rest assured, a lot of the stuff that you're going to write, you're going to toss or put aside, or maybe it doesn't fit at this point in time, but you will come back to that as you go along. So if you want to know, the secret sauce to author success is to understand that there are steps, and they're your steps. It's your persona in play. It's your methodology in play. It's how you learn to work best. I've revealed many times over, I kind of, write in blitzes. I mean, I have to do things every day just for my general work with clients, as well as my own obligations. But when I'm into my creative mode for like me, I sometimes just have to block. I go into blocks and I have scheduled appointments with myself. And sometimes they're a day, sometimes they're a whole week where I just go underground, which I did this past at the end of this preceding year. Just my time. It's blocked off as JB time. That I just do that. And I put out notices to my clients and things. Don't call me. I rescheduled everything to do the clearing so I could take advantage of having like 4 to 5 days, just my time. And it could even include watching a movie. You know, we never know where sometimes my time is going to take me, but it's uninterrupted, so I could just allow myself to get into the flow with that. So, and that's part of the self-care I think that we all need to do as authors. So when I watch authors in the bookstore, and I've taught many of the people with me, and we have a great relationship with Barnes and Noble. What I love about bookstores is people who go into bookstores like books. You don't have to sell them the concept of reading. Now, they may be audio readers, they may be ebook readers, they may be print book readers, but they're readers. So that's what we're looking for in that, to make sure that we have those windows of opportunities and we go through the door to take advantage of it. So I love the Grisham. I know the beginning and I know the end. I just don't know what else is going to unfold in between. But the story will take off. The story will happen, which is kind of cool, I think, to do that. So allow yourself in this cycle to honor your words, the power of your words, the power of your voice, and to take it forward. So what I want to kind of come around to is some of the things that will lead to your author success. I've been writing for over 40 years. I am a reluctant author. I never intended to be an author, never intended to write a book, never had that dream of being an author. It came about when someone took some of my work and published it under his name and never acknowledged my credit. And that's when the epiphany dropped in and said, if you don't start taking some of your own ideas, other people will continue to take them. So that's how I started. What I did not know is that once you start on the path, there's more to it. And that books breed books. And now I'm working on book number 49 and book number 50. So, and two of the favorite things during the holidays, I did last year I did a little cookbook, Cooking with Judith, which has been successful and people loved. And I never go into a bookstore that I don't sell at least 20 copies of it. And I even take along, a ribbon. I have coordinated ribbons that go with it, and that here, I'll just even show you what I do. I have a reel. Okay, this is the book. So this is the book, Cooking with Judith. All right, so it's comfort food, easy peasy, and it's not. It's friendly. It's like you're in my kitchen with me, and I'm right by your side, and we're going to cook together. Okay, so that's the tone, that's the voice it's carrying in, and it's like I had people just recently that came up for a holiday party we did, and because they drive a distance, they usually stay over, and they want to come in the kitchen and cook with me, and so so what are you making? And I showed them different ways to make omelets that morning to just do it. And what tools, I have certain tools that I really love to use. And I give those as gifts to friends, my favorite kitchen tools at the time. But I take this, okay, so we have this, and then this is a reel, okay, ribbon. Purple's my color usually, right? But it's sheer, and I would wrap them in the store very easily, and I would wrap them for a gift, whoever they were, if whether they were buying this book for mom or for Aunt Charlotte or whoever it was, but I wrap it so they went away with a wrap gift. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. Part of the author success is to be able to do this kind of stuff it live, and that with having ribbon, I pre-cut it because I know what size I need. I can wrap a package in about less than 15 seconds. And they set it off, and I always use the sheer of it because you spent all this money with the beautiful design of your cover. Why do you want to cover it up with wrapping paper? So I just like to find a color that is an accent to it, to a or is your favorite, which is certainly one of mine, and that book is loaded with purple. But it just seemed to work well. And when I did a test, I have another color that I'll use is yellow, or I'll use like this, my lime green. And that people choose, and 90% choose purple. So it just makes you different. You stand out. It's a personalization to it. That's part of author success. It's your packaging, it's your branding that comes together. So, what about your branding? What do you think about for your branding? Have you branded with colors? Do you branding with, illustrations? What do you do your branding with that's clearly yours when you're signing books at an event, whether it's a private event or whether it's a bookstore? When you're signing, what do you bring along with you? What's on your table? What supports that's unique there? I have little mini oh covers. It's miniature covers that I put like little Hershey chocolate bars in. When people buy a book, I said, here's your chocolate to go with it. They like that. So there's things that you can do to stand out. What are they that will make you different? Think about the seasons. When I go into a store, I'm always tuned in the seasons, whether it's spring, whether you've got a Mother's Day kind of event, if there's a Father's Day event, if it's around Labor Day, whether it's workers or November Vets Day. Certainly Christmas is a big one. But things that will mentally get a buyer into wanting to take you home with them. And that's what that's about. So branding helps you so you're recognized. I did a show last year with Rebecca Finkel. We talked about the different swags. I highly recommend you get a runner. I mean, you can get the pull-up banners, the big, well, sometimes it gets cumbersome. Sometimes there's not enough room in the stores or the places to have them. But there is a table. They always have a table. So you want to have a runner anywhere from 2 to 3 feet wide, with whether it's award-winning, best-selling, whatever it is, epic, epic, epic fantasy author, blah, blah, blah. Well, and in your name, bigger, but something to let them know that number one, you're the author on site, and that this is the kind of thing that you look for. One of the other deals that I've really learned in this whole marketing field and connecting, and we're talking about connecting with the potential buyer, is to know when to shut up. And what I mean is that, and I use bookmarks very effectively. I have a bookmark for every book. If I have a series of books that I have bookmarked with all of them on that. I have a fiction series and my publishing series. They're all on there with just one short, like a couple of words, phrases that would bring people into who that book was for. And when I do that, and people are starting to read that, you need to go quiet. Just let them read it. When they're done, they'll either going to put it down or they'll keep it or they're ready to make eye contact with you. And that's what you're after, is to make eye contact. And have a conversation, whether it's a couple of minutes or, it might last longer. I've had some long conversations sometimes in bookstores with people. So whatever it is that works for you, that's what you're after, as you put it together. So that's the author success. This is part of your walk, as you go through this whole arena of what is it about? Where does it take you? How long do you want to keep it going? Kind of thing. And that you will remember that in a bookstore, and I've said this so many times, the average author sells 4 to 6 books. You're not average. you're above average. You're way above average. And you want to make that just little touches, little changes. Who's it for? Who's the buyer? What gizmos and gadgets? It might be giveaways or you have. Now, I have for like my cooking book on that bookmark, there is a recipe, one of the favorite recipes in the cookbook. And I just actually put it out on that and that people have that. And I'll just say, hey, do you like beets? Do you like a beet salad? And would you like to have one with 5 ingredients or less that is to die for? Right. That's the conversation that we get started with. It could be, no, I can't stand beets. And I said, do you like corn? Or do you like, I'm going to find something that we like on that. But you can get into it. And I'm prepared to open the page to that cookbook that would have something in there that they could take a look at and read. And again, my intro to each recipe is very different from a lot of the cookbooks you see. I'm going to take you someplace with me, or how this was developed, or what's been the impact of it. I'm working on a new cookbook called Appetizers with Judith, and I did a function in December that actually had 10 new appetizer recipes I was playing with because I guinea pig people all the time. And it was very interesting to see one of them get devoured so quickly. I mean, they all, you know, were devoured, but this one that usually I go to more parties with that have bries and things like that. And I just decided to do something different. So literally, I took a brie wheel. I took dental floss and sliced it in half, this way, like that. And one of my favorite jams is from Oregon called Marionberry. And I said, well, I think we'll just make a Marionberry brie. But I toasted up a whole bunch of pine nuts in it, with a little garlic salt and things on it. And I put pine nuts, and filled it with jam and pine nuts. And that thing was devoured so quickly, I was kind of shocked to see it leave, leave so fast. But so those are keepers, that you go through, and you make it. So author success, it's important. It's to say, yes, do you want to be a mediocre author? I don't think so. I don't think any of you listening in or watching would say, oh yeah, today that will be my goal, just to be a mediocre author. I don't think so. So what you want to do is find out what steps will take you into that next area. And let me tell you, one is that one little thing I go through, for example, and it's almost like a meditation, but I call it listen, feel, and visualize. And that I know that as I start to write, my writing will take me places sometimes I hadn't thought about where I would go, how they could arrive. But it goes something like this. Judith, you are a writer. You're an author to be. You are enough. You need nothing else, just you. Your ideas are plentiful. You've got to trust in them. They trust in you. And your knowledge is abundant. Believe in it. It will be there when you're ready to pick. Then I just tell myself, now start to just listen around me, feel around me, visualize where I'd like to be, and start writing. Right. And with that, when I do that, it's just like, okay, your book is calling you. Now, my other setup is I often will have like a mug of tea, all right, or iced tea, or I discovered raspberry lemonade at Olive Garden, really good. Um, I discover all those kind of things to get it going so I can use it. And I surround myself with stuff that I can just kind of stay stationary. For me, I'm stationary. I'm sitting, I'm writing. I'm not hiking. I'm not walking around writing. I write in my head. I do stuff in my head all the time. But when I'm sit down and I'm ready to go, it's ready to blast out because I've done that listen, that feel, and that visualize. And that will make the difference, trust me, in some of the things that you're looking at doing where you think you're going in that area. So it's just makes a whole difference when you bring that about. Now, one of the things, in being in a bookstore, I've learned just to do the three-letter word ask. What kind of books are you looking for today? If they say, "Oh, I like everything," okay, that's fun to hear. It also can be they're not ready to narrow down. But then I will say, well, can I can I tell you about my books? Or so I'll say, maybe, do you like cooking, or do you like historical fiction, or are you thinking about writing your own, or do you know anybody who is thinking about doing that? All right, because I have books for all that here. So, and they often will say, well, tell me about your historical fiction. So we get into that a little bit. And typically, even though that's in a series, we're working on book 4 now in the series, that typically they buy book 1 because they're going to do the test. They'll do the test of the market and they'll go in it that way. And that's fine on that. And so you learn that your stocking will always be the dominant of book 1, maybe a few of book 2, a few of book 3, like that kind of thing. But it's the book 1 that's going to be the big seller. And that's been my experience for many years in all of it. Now, when I used to write on conflict resolution, people would say, I want all of the books you have. Yeah, so that was workplace. Those are workplace issues as they go forward. So those are things that you need to be tuned into where you're going on this because it's important to be on track for yourself, to have it all together, to have all the artifacts, comfort things, things around you that will do it, to have the dampers of noise so they can't come in and violate you, which they can. Let me tell you, noise can come from every which way. It's not only from the phone, it can, people, the doorbell ringing. Especially during the holiday time. If your house was like mine, there was deliveries almost every day coming in, which was crazy. So that's what we see, in that area, in that neck of the woods, with that. So you just have to decide what will work for you, where you want to be, how you're gonna, what's going to be the portal that you're going to go through to carry you there. Do you need to go away? On that, I always marveled at clients of mine who said, oh, yeah, I just go down to the local cafe or Starbucks or something, I write. I could never do that because I'm a voyeur. I would want to watch everything. I would not be doing my writing. Now, of course, you could say, well, you're doing your homework. You're watching people. Maybe you're getting ideas. Well, this is true. That could be true. But for me, I know what my distractors are. And so sometimes I just have to settle back. Sometimes I may have music on in the background to settle in, which I kind of like on doing that. Sometimes I just need to have a quiet day around me where I sometimes have a lot of chaos and noise and action going on. But you need to know where you are in this arena so you can make it work. And that's what I'm trying to stress here. So author success. It does start with the walk, the author's walk. Starts understanding what your voice is, not someone else's. I think one of the problems with the AI that has become so prominent is that you can easily say, well, you know, chat or Gemini or whoever you use. There's so many of them now that are variation of the thing, is that you can prompt them to go in a direction that is totally different from what you think and where you're at and where you want to be. And it wouldn't even be sound like you. So you have to be truly, truly careful on what you do here and where you go. Because what they, the AI is amazing and it's also can be a foe for the writer. And because you can get lazy, they can start taking other stuff and what you put up. And I've seen some people go, oh, I made a mistake in doing that and where I want to go. All right. The other thing I want to kick off now, we're going to have later this month, John Kramer will be with us, and we're going to talk about some strategies. It's a couple of really key strategies. One dealing with the changes with Google, which are humongous and will impact all of us. And we'll also get into strategies just for, okay, here, book marketing for 2026 and where we want to go. The other thing is that this is the time of the year, if you haven't already done it in the last month or so, this is the cleanup time for your author success. Go in and revisit everything. Go in and revisit all your portfolios on social media. Do they still say exactly what they should be saying? Or should they be bringing in new words? Now, one of the little tricks you can do is for your genre, for your book, remember that Amazon is the #3 search engine. If you go into the search box on Amazon and you put in your genre or start writing the first couple of words, if you have a title with multiple words in it or a subtitle, put in those first few words. See what's the search box brings up from their memory banks. And that search box is revealing what people who are doing searches on Amazon are using to search for, or possibly your genre, or your characters, or your storyline. But those kind of things might be worthwhile now to incorporate 1, 2 words extra that come into play in your profile. So when people are searching on a social media tool, or on the Google or wherever it is, that they put in your name, those words and things, you will come up in it, which is ideally what you're after. That's how you get even better at this whole game that we're doing here. So profiles should all be looked at again as you go along. And also, let's talk about printing. It's going up, 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 up. Ingram Spark announced in December that they were raising prices that will go into effect in February. And they have now up on the Ingram Spark homepage on the left side, they have a price printing a spiel that ties into check printing costs. Because with them, you could be under the water, which a couple of my clients have kind of in shell shock. They're going to be actually, if someone buys a book in a bookstore and the bookstore has ordered it from Ingram Spark, they will owe more money than what they'll get. Right. So you don't want to be under the water here. So this would be right now, today, if you haven't checked on Ingram Spark, price of your book, the printing cost of your book, you may want to raise the price. It doesn't make sense to do this to net 10 cents to you. This doesn't make sense at all to do that. So you may need to be 2 under, and they're going after a lot of books under $15, I'm telling you. And that are, over 200 pages. They're seeing big changes in there. I saw almost a $4 difference between Ingram Sparks' cost for a print book and Amazon's cost on via KDP. So that's what you're looking for. And these kind of things, these are updates that need to be done. If you need to change the price, and you may, if you haven't noticed, a lot of the books are the mainstream, the people, the big with the big publishers. They are, some of them are kissing $30. Now, I'm not suggesting you go to $30, but maybe your 19.95 is too low now. It's too low. So maybe increasing it. And we increased, I know for my historical fiction, they were all 19.95. They're all now, I think, 22.95. Yeah, they're big books, and when you start figuring out, okay, so if I sell my book, my say for me $23, and I'm, discounting it 40% for the stores, and or 50%, whatever you go there. Your printing costs could very well be seven for a bigger book, those the fantasy books, sci-fi books, those it could be running $6, $7, $8 a book. For my little cookbook, it is over $7 because it's full color inside. So, and hey, well, you can do black and white. You know what? Black and white food pictures are not enticing. So you just want to be really careful here on this as you go along. So go in, and this is the time, if you have not done it, to check out your pricing. Just you'll put in your book, they'll tell you. Ingram Spark actually will say your book needs attention. If you're underwater, I had someone who was going to owe 80 cents for every book that was sold with the new price increase. And so we raised, we ended up raising the book $5 on that. We just had no choice. This was a color interior, had art related uh, uh, illustrations. So you just need to stay on top of this so you know what to expect while you're in author land. And are you in a price? Now, at the same time, if you raise it on Ingram, you need to go over to any other platform that you have your book posted on to sell, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Kobo, whether it's any drafted digital, wherever it is, that you've got to do those raising of these prices. And they need to be paralleled, mirror each other on both the stations. Now, if you have coupons and you're doing things like that, or specials and reductions, those are the exceptions. And it's probably for a very specific period of time. And you will come back to that. But for right now, that's where that is when you look at that. The other thing was that I had a very detailed discussion with someone who was going to bundle all her ebooks together and sell it as this collection. And I said, what are you going to sell it for? And she threw on some numbers. And I said, so you're going to sell all these books. You're going to reduce because you want them to all have them all at once. I get that. You're doing the revisions of coming back because you don't need all some of the duplications you have in each book. I get that too. But you're going to bring it about and you're going to sell it for like that's what they all would cost. And I'm going, wait a sec, why would if you're going to bundle them together, you need to make a deal. Number one, but number two, right now, your payout on Amazon's ebook platform is roughly 70%. If you change it to these higher prices, it drops to 35. Why would you do that? Why would you do that dropping dramatically? So if you had a book that sells, let's say, $9.99, which is Amazon's cutoff, and you get 70% of that, which is almost $7. Or you can put all 5 of the books together in your bundle, which would be 35. And if you sold it for 30, let's do the math. The math says they'll pay you 35%. So 35% times 30, is going to bring you in under $11. You're going to net 11, where before, for $5, where before individually you were making $7. Doesn't make sense. So I think this is number crunching time. You really have to look at it to see where the things are, what you want in that process, and the why behind it on that. You know, why? Because it'd be really cool to have this as a bundled set. Yeah, I get that. But to sell it at full price of each individual book makes no sense to me. Now, I may be wrong, but that's my experience, at least right now in the beginning of 2026, in that arena. All right, so what else do you need to do to do it? You're going to do your profiles. You're going to do that. I've got to tell you to go back to websites. Google is going to do a lot of stuff dealing with websites and whether people are findable, meaning you are findable via your website. And they're making a big deal about the financial side of what your products sell for. Is that visible? And I would suspect as you listen to this, you all say, well, we have links. I have a link to B&N, Barnes & Noble. I have a link to Amazon. I have a link. Say you go find it. Well, maybe not good enough because the link that what Google is searching for to supposedly help visibility to your website is to make sure that the numerical like number, if your book sells for $20, it says $20. If it says that, okay, that's what you're after. Each one, not just the link, just get the price in. And Google will give you more clout for that to take advantage of it. So that's a thought, I'm going around this merry-go-round here with you, in looking at that. And then lastly, I think it's this whole thing of social media and the changing. And I think it's important. I know I'm working on putting it together for my own use and for my clients' use is the ideal times at the end of the year. They come in and show, what's the average on TikTok, what's the average on Instagram, what are the best times to post and all that. I think you need to pay attention to all that. What are those better times to do that posting? But also, this is the but part. It's also really important to understand when your viewers are there, the people who are maybe following you. It may not be that they don't turn on their computer till 8 o'clock at night, or their tablet, or scanning their mobiles till 8 o'clock at night, even though that would be totally out of the norm for most of those social agents, which are looking at daytime, with that. So that's something to just bring into the play as you have that, and it would make sense, and to look forward to it on that. So check your social media. And what I would be doing now that we're into the new year, I would do a search for the latest data on whatever it is, the platform, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, whether it's fill in the blank. Facebook, if you really want updates on Facebook, you always want to follow Marie Smith. And just, yeah, she seems to be, that's where she plays on that. And you've got to look, maybe you fantasize getting these thousands and thousands and thousands of viewers on TikTok, but is it converting to sales? If it's not, maybe it's just the wrong market, or you're entertaining them, but they're not buying what you want to sell. So you need to understand that. Which way is it going to go? Okay. So, and then I wanted to make sure this is the time when we're doing it at all I have 1, 2, 3, 4 websites that going into those that the metadata matches each of the page. Now, some of the metadata will be the same for every page. You'll have certain words or phrases will always be on the pages, but other metadata will be included on an author page, on a speaking tab, on anything like that. Make sure that you have metadata keywords in each page that are uh, paralleling what that page is about. Don't just throw in a whole bunch just because that I do it on every page. There will be some duplicates for sure. But what you want to do is just make sure that you get in that each one page has a keyword that people would be using to be searching. That will help you offset some of these changes for this. So I would go down that road in the process. So those are some of the things that I wanted you to be tuned into as we move along here on what you can be successful with for this year. And the other thing is that the other book, besides the author's walk, that I have suggested to you, it truly is the book I wish I had 40 years ago when I started writing and to have as I go along with what I do. All right. The other book that I'm going to recommend that you get a hold of for your author success going forward this year would be I always say it's the companion to the author's walk, How to Avoid Book Publishing Blunders. So this will save you millions of dollars, not millions, thousands of dollars in mistakes or that we all do. And we all make, God, we all make them. But this will save you buku bucks in the process. So as you go through and the things that I mentioned with them, or these are some of the things that you want to think about as a cheat sheet, the kind of a cheat sheet that understand, for example, if those of you who are still rewriting a chapter for the 100th time, I'm going to tell you to stop it. Stop it. That perfection is the enemy of you. Post it where you can see it. If you keep trying to make whatever you're writing perfect, time disappears into the vacuum. You're not going to get it done. Just sometimes I don't care if there's even a typo in it. Getting something out, you can always go back and fix that, but it's getting it done. I think it's important to understand opportunity windows close really quickly on that. And when you're on, one of my co-author wants to constantly do the re-edits and stuff, and I'm always saying, just let the flow go. Let your flow go. Your writing flow go. We can always come back and add all this other stuff later on. So don't get stuck with editing copy. I know author Jerry Jenkins told me, and Jerry is a real writer, but it's the co-writing thing behind the Left Behind series. And that he would often say that he would just write it, then he would just let it go, and he would come back the next morning and he would do a fast edit on it, and then he'd just start writing again. So be careful with some of these contracts. Here's what's going on. This certainly is from AI. This is certainly became the go-to scam letters of 2025. And the whole production of letters that can be written, like this person really read your book, really looked your book over, did all those things. And it is also all about going into just taking advantage of your naivete and also your desire. God, I love it. What, boy, maybe get picked up. Wouldn't that be cool? by a major publisher. It doesn't always sound that way. They promises. Remember, these chat related things can be used prompts to say just about anything, and that's what they do. They scrape. They go in and scrape, and they send out the letter to you, and you think, "Oh, this person's fabulous. Of course, they've read my book." Nope, they haven't. They put it into a chat program um, and to teach it. They're teaching it also do this, but they fed it in. They're coming out with this stuff, so you have to be careful that you don't get lured away on that. And you've got to develop a script. I did a blog last year on some types of scriptings you can do with some of these movie deals that get offered that are just nothing but scams. For you to put in $4,500 into them, okay, and then they come back and they use it to buy whatever you got pitched to doing. All right, so next up is you're on your cheat sheet is to know that book selling is really competitive. It is so competitive, and you have to really look. Remember, bookstores don't have a lot of space for all the stuff that they have. It would be very cool if your bookstore had a local author shelf that sometimes they place yours, or they could do it in other places. But that would be kind of cool to see if you could fit in there on that, move it along, and that you want to do the cover test that you go into. That I think it's very important. So going around, and I've had authors set on book covers because they think they know best instead of getting out of the way and let the book designers, who might just be a little bit more sophisticated you in the overall book designing business. So they'll come in and do that, and that will make, I promise you, that will make a big difference in that. So go into the bookstores. I want you to go into a brick and mortar store. I want you to pay attention is what on those opening tables in the store. Now, some of the stores make all their tables like a genre specific. Some do maybe a new arrival table. Some do local authors. Some do uh, a book on the classics. I know Barnes and Noble, I keep referring to them because I'm in these stores a lot. Barnes and Noble has their own books of the year, which are kind of cool to see, what to do. But I want you to pay attention to the colors, the fonts, the presentation, the imagery on the cover or lack of it, or minimalization of it. So you want to look at all these kind of things in that. Don't ever undersell the power of Amazon. I know we're all kind of irritated with some of the stuff they're doing at different times, but that remember they're the big player on that. All right, a couple of other things. We have like just a couple of minutes left that you need to make sure that you do get organized in both your back matter and your front matter. Your front matter, of course, is your copyright page, your title page. It could be a dedication page. It could be a table contents page. It could be um, praise for your work or your books from a variety of people. You can put that up front. That's all front matter related stuff. And then the back matter is some people end up putting the copyright page. Some people will put so much. They will put uh, a synopsis of the next book. I always like to include next chapter. Back matter could include, I actually put mine in a whole separate section. I should show you. Let me pull down my this is book 3, The Secret Rise in the Harmony series. And in the back of the book, we have something called, and it's meant to stand out a little bit different. So we call it, we get to it, right? I call it PS, right? So I have a PS at the back, right? And it has a little mini index of what's included in there. So in that mini index would be discussion questions for book clubs, would be an excerpt from the next book, The Secret Awakening. It would be a list of all the characters in the book. It would be something about the authors and how to work with us, how to contact us. And then at the very, very end, the last pages is a book description of each one of the books. So this is book three. This is book three. This The Secret Rise. My hand is all over it. Sorry about that. Book three, right? But if you want to, I here's how to contact. And then, we have the cover, and there's just a few sentences of what each one of the books is about. So that helps your reader as it goes forward. All right, that's a wrap for us. We're going to be back. Tune in next week. We'll have John Kramer with us, and I know it's going to be chock full of information you must have.